All right, guys, we're doing one of my most requested videos besides fender trims. People want to know how to put these cam gears in. And while we're here, we're throwing in an intake manifold spacer. So, I've already disassembled the upper intake plenum, the secondary air pump, and the intake throttle body, all that stuff. If you are comfortable enough to try to do cam gears, you can take all that out without me needing to do a step-by-step. So we're gonna get into removing the valve covers, checking the timing, and taking off the sprockets from the original camshafts and putting these in. As I stated before, we've got all this stuff pretty much disassembled already. And I just finished setting the timing. Here we go, you can't really see it too much, but it's on the timing light on 0. That's with a 22mm socket on this 2015 Tacoma. Some of them, the older years, do have a different socket size. I believe it's 2 sizes smaller, I'm not sure. But either way, we're going to get these valve covers torn off, and we'll take the tensioners off of the exhaust chain for the cam gears to get swapped out, put back on, swap the spark plugs in, put the spacer on, and reassemble everything. The passenger side valve cover is super easy to remove. There's not a lot in the way. You just take off all the bolts and it kind of just pops out right out. The driver's side is a headache, and I'm going to show you a few things that I do that make it easier for me. So one, I take off this clip. If you see it down here, it goes to the alternator, and there's some little side pressure clips that you just hit with the pick and it pops out. So that gives you this slack, right? 2, I disconnect this plug, and this plug, and that gives me way more upward movement than it would be if you left them. I've done it by leaving them, but it's a huge headache. And then when you go to put in the valve cover with the fresh silicone everywhere and it's really tight, it's a pain in the butt. So doing those few things on this side will make your life a lot easier. Now we're going to verify timing before moving forward. As I stated before, I've got it on the 0 line on the crank pulley down there, and we should have this keyway. So that top, let's see if I can point at it. That's the timing right there with that chain on that sprocket, and there's actually a little drilled indicator there showing you that's timed. And then this side, of course, will have the timing light for that, or the timing mark, sorry. And the same goes for this indicator, which is showing that it's timed perfectly. So from here, we're going to mark the chains with a paint marker. I mark the top of the link on both sides and the front of the link just to be safe. And I do the same for the intake. I'll mark this with the marker at this timing spot. In the very rare chance that you fumble the chain and it comes off and you lose the link on here of where it should have been, those paint marks are going to save you. Without those marks, you're not going to have any idea of where to put it and kind of guess, and who knows what's going to happen. So clean it a little bit, do a paint mark on it, make your life easier. The hardest part is going to be breaking these bolts. I've got a 24mm wrench and a wrench extender. The wrench extender gives me all the leverage I need to hold it because the torque's so high. So you use the wrench extender, and then from here I have an extended 17mm wrench that I put a jack handle over for even more leverage. And you just crisscross your arms, boom, pops off easy. You can do it without it, it just takes way more effort. And ultimately, before even getting ahead of yourselves, you want to get a blue shop towel, those little disposable ones, crumple it up and put it down in this cavity, because if you drop anything, you need to be able to recover it. You're going to have this bolt come out, and this is the tensioner nut that loosens this tensioner assembly. So just in case, put a towel down there, and also do not forget to remove it when you put everything back together. I still have the spark plugs in because I don't want the chance of dropping anything into the spark plug chamber, but we will be changing them. So right now I just broke the chain tensioners loose, and I'll just take it off by hand so I know that I have full control of the bolt. Put that there. Okay. So this is the jack handle off my Pro Eagle. We've got the 17mm for right here, and the 24 for here. So we'll be pressing forward on left, pulling back on right. This is the wrench extender. So it's gonna give me leverage all the way out here to push forward. Sorry, push forward on this one. And then with this, we'll be sliding it here, pulling it back. The more leverage, the easier the brake. The less leverage, the harder the brake. Anyways, let's break this cam bolt loose. That's it. Now on to the other side. Again, take your time. Figure out what you're going to be doing here. So we're going forward and pulling back. I want to get myself ready. Because it's kind of hard to juggle it all at once. So we're going forward with this. Make sure that it's going to clear when you move it. I'm going back with this. So 1, 2. That's it. I don't want to drop anything on this body, so we'll drop the tools on the ground. And now we have cam bolts that are loose. It's a little trickier getting them on than it is getting them off. But sometimes a little mini pry bar or a flathead will get the gear off. Sometimes it just slides right off. But you want to keep it on hand, keep the pry bar on hand. And since I've done it so many times, I haven't changed or I didn't bump. Sometimes when you're wrestling with it without enough leverage, you'll move the timing. So I could verify that my timing hasn't moved based off my marks. And I could look down here if I want and check that we're still on 0, which is perfect. So if you do move it, be sure to reset it back, because you want to know that you're putting it in the correct spot. So since I didn't move it, we're good. If you need to, you can move it with the crank. You can see I still have the extension bar down on the crank socket. And we'll show you this one since I have the camera on that side already, but should be an easy swap. Okay, so I squeeze the tensioner a little bit, lift it up, and you get it off the little locating pin that's holding it. Okay, so it's a little loose. So here's my mini pry bar in case I need it, but I'm gonna try to wiggle it off first. So I wiggled it off, tensioner is loose, and I'm going to drop the cam gear down and out from the chain, but keep pulling to give it tension on the intake. And we're putting front in the front and the pin on that, on the green painted mark. And now we're sliding the cam gear up. Make sure to set that tensioner back on that peg. And then you're going to, oops. Talk about getting tools ready. Supposed to have the 24 ready. So assuming it was right here where it should have been, we have to re-index the timing since we're retarding it 3 degrees and rotate the cam back to line up with the new keyway. So everything's still good here. It's just a little nudge back. Don't go too much because the cam will spin and it'll spring. So from here you can squeeze the tensioner and you should have all the slack you need to slide it on. Don't fight with the cam gear. Make sure to get the tension you need by squeezing that tensioner. 1, it'll make your life a lot easier, and 2, you have less chances of breaking anything. And then I'll grab the camera right now and show you guys where we're at here. We lifted up this tensioner and you can see this one springs, so that's where you get your slack from. The other side is springs from the bottom up. And then so here we have the keyway on the green, and it's just a smidge off the timing line to the left because it is retarded 3 degrees now. And if you look on here, this pin on the cam is what locates the sprocket. But you can physically push that pin into the cam more. And 1, that's dangerous because you don't have enough contact to lock it in. It's almost like a Woodruff key. And 2, you don't want to do that because you're fighting putting this on when it should go on relatively easy. Sometimes they fight a little bit, but your last resort is to put a bolt on here and jam it on until it goes on. That's last resort. So I am fully seated here. I didn't fight with it. We have the chain tensioner back on the dowel, and I could put this in. So we'll tighten that. And let's see here. We could put the bolt in. I like to do it by hand as much as you could. Just less chance for any failure or any damage or anything crazy. We'll leave the towel until we torque it, and then we'll do the other side. Okay, I realized that the footage didn't really show you, but don't worry. We've got one more sprocket and I can show you in depth right here. And in all honesty, this one's actually a little bit harder because the tension is coming from the bottom, not the top. So it's kind of a pain, but we will figure it out. Okay, let's take this off. And I've already got the 24mm on the cam, so I can move the timing around a little bit. Again, do this by hand. No need to rush, you're in a crucial part of the motor. So we will make sure it's loose off the peg, pull it out, slides right off. I'm going to do the same on this one, so get this out of the way and try to get slack for the gear to come out. There. So we're bringing it down. I'm giving some tension to the left. So front with the pin. Pin goes on green. Still bringing it up and pulling a little. Now you can see the tensioner is completely off. So we need to be sure that we have it seated, and the bottom needs to seat also. And we'll kind of pull it down onto the indicator right here. So we're going to give it a nudge back. Pull that slack by squeezing. Sometimes you gotta move it left and right. You can see the chain tension till it slides on. Now that's fully seated. That sprocket is fully seated back. We've got the dowel pin showing. We didn't need a bolt to jam it on. We've got the tension back on the chain. Perfect. It's on the little dowel indicator. So we'll throw this guy back in just to be sure. And we'll throw this guy back on. Spin it by hand. And the hardest part is over. The hardest part is over. All you have to do is tighten these back up the reverse way, so with more leverage on the wrenches, the better it is. And put it back together. If you have an intake manifold spacer, you can throw it in while you're doing the job. And this job basically requires valve cover gasket, spark plugs, throttle body gasket, plenum gasket, all to be done at the same time. Knock it all out, change your secondary air valve gaskets if you're in here, and save yourself worry for many, many miles. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you made it this far, like and subscribe, check out the channel. So basically where I started this video and where I ended this video are gonna be somewhat the same. If you have an XTP intake manifold spacer, check out my video. It shows you how to take the intake plenum on and off. And that video will basically lead you to where we started this one with the valve covers on. And then you can take it from there. Take the valve covers off, change the gears, put the valve covers back on, get this intake manifold back on, spacer if you're gonna be doing it, and call it a day. So it's not too hard. Just take your time, cross all your T's, dot all your I's, and you'll be good to go. You'll love the increased performance that it gives you for sure.